Hello, everyone, and welcome back to American Populist. And today I will be discussing North Carolina, the Tar Heel state. A state I recently moved to, in fact, actually. I will be discussing where North Carolina is trending. Is it trending right? Is it trending left? And what factors are contributing to either way. But first, before I do, hit that like button, subscribe, as I always appreciate it. Thank you all for getting me to almost 90 subscribers. I appreciate it so much. It means a lot to me. And now on to the video. North Carolina is a pretty important state to the Republican coalition. Its 16 electoral votes have been pretty reliably Republican up until its recent history, where it has gone pretty close, with Donald Trump only winning it by like 1.6 points, I believe, was the margin in 2020. And that was mostly due to the growth in Mecklenburg, Raleigh-Durham, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Asheville area, growing really a lot and diversifying. But that's the whole story. There are factors in the state which are showing promising signs for Republicans. And I will talk about the first of those two factors. Number one, the suburbs are very different from those in Georgia and Illinois and a bunch of other states, where the suburban shift has been pretty bad for Republicans. The two main reasons for that are the suburbs of Charlotte, Raleigh-Durham, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, Asheville to a lesser extent, and New Haven, Wilmington, are a lot less college educated than those in the Atlanta area, and are still pretty white demographically. But the college education is the most important part in the fact that a lot of these very big suburbs still vote pretty Republican, like Union County, Canberra, Rowan, Kentba. These suburbs, which make up a pretty important large share of the electorate. But that's not the only reason Republicans have more reason to be optimistic in the state of North Carolina. According to census data, the rural population is still pretty significant in North Carolina, which many people do not know about or understand and take that into account. 40% of the state's total population still lives in rural counties, mostly in the western half, the central, and some parts of the Piedmont Plateau area, mostly in the black part of the state. And those still do have a lot of votes and are nowhere near being maxed out for Republicans. Republicans still have a lot of room to improve in the western part of the state, the eastern half of the state. The black area of the state is actually losing population, which is also pretty good news for Republicans in terms of the electorate, and their voting power of the state is declining. But they do have to worry about the growth in Mecklenburg, Raleigh-Durham, Greensboro, Winston-Salem area. But they still do have the suburbs, at least to an extent. And they did trend pretty heavily left in 2020, but not as much as they did in Georgia, where that state went blue and probably will stay blue for a long time. I made a video about talking about Georgia. And another thing about North Carolina is the total demographics is still almost 70% white. It's 68.68% white. And Asians make up 2%, blacks make up 21% of the total demographics of North Carolina. And Hispanics and Asians have been trending a little bit to the right lately, as we saw in the Rio Grande and Miami-Dade. And Republicans can definitely improve with some of those Asian groups, like the Vietnamese we saw in California. And if the Republican Party were to do much better with reaching out and actually doing stuff to stop fight the left more culturally, they would actually win over more of those voters who live in the suburbs, which would help for now to stave off the suburban shift in North Carolina. And that doesn't mean all the suburbs, but most of them have been trending away from Republicans. I will be discussing that in a future video. And so with all these factors taken into account, I still say North Carolina is a leaning Republican state for the time being. Likely, if Republicans can do really well in the suburbs and max out the rural areas, which they still have plenty of room to grow in, as I talked about before. These areas are nowhere near being maxed out. And yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe. I'm American Populist.